Peter Pedler. I'm from Duncan Hannon. I hope you enjoy the show today.
Welcome back. You're watching Open House, Fridays 12 to 12:30, and as you can see, we're joined by Peter Pedler. How are you, Peter?
Thanks, Walt. So it's good to be here, particularly with such an esteemed panel.
Of us too. You're easily pleased, my man.
Peter, thanks for the sponsorship. It's been fantastic to have you on board. Perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about your firm.
Thanks, Michael. Look, Duncan Hannon is well known as personal injury lawyers, but we also have a very strong property and commercial section as well, and we advise people on all issues related to property transactions.
And Max Bashir, is he still around the place? He's certainly given us quite a bit of work over the years. He's a great bloke.
No, Max is still very much involved with the firm.
Excellent. So the Duncan, the Bashir is old Maxie, is it?
That's right.
How am I allowed to ask how old Maxie be these days?
No, I think it'll be giving away secrets.
Still see him out and about. He's lively as, so it's fantastic to see that he's still around as far as an active member of your organisation.
Yeah, no, he's still very active.
Very well-known organisation, huge reputation, so thank you very much for joining our show.
Thanks, Miles.
What we're hoping to do is just bring some information to the people that watch our show in regard to some of the behind-the-scenes real estate. And you've chosen Foreign Investment Review Board. Peter, what is it?
Well, FIRB, or Foreign Investment Review Board approval, is the set of approvals that a person is required to obtain if they're not an Australian citizen.
Right.
The rules apply across Australia. They're imposed by the Commonwealth Government, and they apply to all types of transactions, but today we'll just talk about those that apply to real estate transactions.
So when you say not a citizen, I was only a citizen of Australia 2 weeks ago, Brocky. I'm not sure if you knew that. I was a Canadian right up until then, and I've been able to purchase homes on the way through. So that would be because I've lived in Australia my whole life?
Well, that's because you've probably been a permanent resident.
That would be exactly right. So you can be a permanent resident, and you don't need citizenship there.
That's right. You can be a permanent resident, an Australian citizen, or married to an Australian citizen.
Gee,
actually, the rules have all changed, haven't they, Peter? Some years ago, it was very hard if people came out to the country, came out to Australia, for them to get approval was a really long, drawn-out process, even getting money into the country. But my understanding is that the whole thing's loosened up in the last few years, and if you're out here, whether you're studying, whether you're a temporary resident and that sort of thing, it actually opens it up, and that's probably why there are more overseas buyers in the marketplace.
That's right. The rules have been streamlined, so now you can assume that it will take about a month to get approval. Sometimes it might take longer, but
what
about
was it
a month.
before, Brocky?
Oh, look, it could have 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, it was just such a long process, and it was made really difficult with the red tape. But obviously I think that the government have realised that there's a lot of people who want to invest in Australia. It's very sound economically, politically, etc. And we're finding, certainly from our point of view, that we're getting a lot of demand for investment properties and for expats coming back, but also people who want to make Australia a home, and this makes it a lot more easy for them to buy.
Yes, that's right. That's
what,
right.
What sort of contracts require approval?
Well, different rules apply depending on the nature of the property and, in fact, where you're from. For example, different rules apply to New Zealanders. But if you're buying a second-hand house, so a second-hand house is any property that's
second-hand house. Quite like that.
Any property that's been owned or lived in for more than 12 months, you can buy that if you're a permanent resident, but you can't buy it as an investment property. You can only buy it to live in it. That's right. Whereas with new properties, they're open for purchase to anyone. So even if you're a non-resident, you can purchase an investment property, a new property as an investment property.
So there's quite a few different rules for different properties and different age properties and different conditions on how long people have been here and all the rest. I think the best thing to do, Peter, would be to email any of inquiries directly to you. What's your email address?
My email address is ppedler@dbh, as in duncanbashirhannon.com.au. We've got a registered conveyancer on staff, Christine Ward, and she's very experienced in dealing with these issues, and she also has access to myself and the other property lawyers if any particular tricky problems come up.
So you're saying it's simplified. It still sounds a little bit complex to me. I think the best way to do it is go straight to the source.
To the guru.
To the guru. I can understand purchasers needing to know all the rules. Do vendors or people that own property, do they need to know if a purchaser's going through this particular process?
It is a useful thing for vendors to know because, as you know, Maltz, there's one part of the transaction is actually selling the property and then the other part of the transaction is completing the sale. So vendors need to know that if a person is buying requires approval, then it's going to take a little bit longer to settle the property. And if it's a sale that might not be approved, they need to know that when they're going into the transaction. Because if
does that make it more difficult, Brocky?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about that is, especially with auctions, which are normally sort of only on the market for 3 weeks before the auction takes place, people really need to get their skates on early. And I think if they're not sure whether they qualify, obviously they can ring you, Peter, which would be great. But then start applying and getting the process going, getting the paperwork moving.
Yes, no, it's important to do that as
time is of the essence.
Exactly.
Can I ask a silly question because I'm good at it? Do you need an approval for each particular property, or once you've got approval, you're okay to go and bid or try and purchase any particular property?
No, you need an approval for every transaction.
Right.
So just because you've got an approval for one transaction doesn't mean you'll get it for another. You probably will, but you can't be certain of it.
Right. Okay, so if I want to go and get approval, what do I do?
Well, you can either do it yourself, you can apply online, or...
How do I do that? I wouldn't have a clue how to start, Peter. Where do I go to try and apply online?
There's a thing called a website.
Yeah, no, I've heard of them. What's the address? What's the address that I need to go on to?
The best thing to do is to search for Foreign Investment Review Board approval on the website, or go and see your conveyancer or lawyer, and they'll be able to
just Google it.
Just Google it, Rocky. Google the world. Okay, foreign investment, I think we've covered that reasonably well.
Yeah,
what
look,
else?
it's a big thing because, as you might know, there's more than 25,000 international students living in Adelaide now, and there's a good number of those students whose parents would rather buy a property than to rent one. So it's becoming a bigger issue, particularly in the Adelaide property market.
We're finding that happening all the time, that people are coming over here, particularly the longer courses, if they're coming over here to study medicine or something like that.
Yes.
By the time it's 5 years or 7 years, when they look at what they're paying in rent, you could pay virtually half a mortgage off in that time and pick up the capital appreciation. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's also families that have got 2 or 3 students, and so they're not just looking at 4 or 5 years, but maybe up to 10 years. They're going to have a student here studying in South Australia, so that it's well worthwhile looking at buying rather than renting.
Now, Peter, if I can't Google and I can't find my way around there, is it something that your organisation can help me with?
Certainly, Maltz. Yes, if you'd like to contact me on our email address, or ring the company on 8231 3668, we'll be able to help you.
That'd be fantastic. And as we heard before, there's a lot of other things that your organisation can help us in all things real estate. But hey, that was really interesting, and it's something we don't come across it all the time, do we, Michael? But it's certainly something that I think we're probably going to see a little bit more of.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to get some more information from Duncan Bashir Hannon, contact us on ppedler@dbh.com.au.